Hey, it's Michael Kosta. How are you? It is Monday, June 16th. This is the Tennis Anyone podcast. It's always something, isn't it? It's always something going on these days. We're going to go over the quick results of ATP and WTA, and then we're going to dig into really America. Also, as I'm doing this, Israel and Iran are bombing each other, which isn't good. Isn't good for the world. Isn't good for America. Strange that Trump is sending in troops to American cities, but then also throwing a military parade for himself, but then also our bombs and weapons are being used in the Middle East. So I will say this emphatically. I don't want to be involved in the Middle East. I don't want federal troops to be involved in our American cities. And crazy, right? Crazy. It feels fragile. Everything feels fragile. The stock market feels fragile. The housing market feels fragile. My emotional health feels fragile. It just feels like so many things. There's so many stacks of cards all the way on top of each other, and it feels like we have a leader who is elected by the American people who wants to destroy and rebuild his way. And the majority of Americans, even those that share his party affiliation, don't want that. But we have 3 out of 10 Americans voted for this guy. And due to him figuring out the system and winning the election, is able to really wreak havoc on this nation. I will say, good job to all the No Kings people, protesters this weekend. I was in a small Republican town in real America this weekend, and the town had around 1,000 people, and about 1,000 people were at the No Kings protest. This is good. This is the First Amendment. This is the right to assemble and to protest the government, and this is excellent. This is how we show our voices. Good job. There are 5 freedoms associated with the First Amendment. Let me see if I can do them all. Freedom of religion, freedom of press, freedom of speech, the right to assemble or protest, and I believe the 5th is the right to petition your government, which means you have the right to ask your government what they're doing. Right? Let's see. First Amendment. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution. By the way, this is an AI overview, so it's not even the Constitution. It's what the artificial intelligence has scrubbed the internet for the AI, for the information. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution protects fundamental rights, including freedom of religion, speech, press, assembly, and the right to petition the government. I would like more information on petition the government. Right to petition the government meaning. Let's not click AI. Let's go with Wikipedia because those are at least humans. In the United States, the right to petition is enumerated in the First Amendment of the United States, which specifically prohibits Congress from abridging the right of the people peaceably to assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances. Okay. Although often overlooked in favor of the more famous freedoms, that sucks. There's a whole list of like freedoms that are more famous. Speech is like, we're always the most famous. Speech is like a branding freedom. It's got a nice Instagram. And sometimes take it for granted. All of it. Many other civil liberties are enforceable against the government only by exercising this basic right. I think it means like, this is where I need AI shit. Interpretation, right to assemble. This is coming from constitutioncenter.org. Common interpretation. The right of the people peaceably to assemble and petition the government for a redress of grievances protects 2 distinct rights, assembly and petition. The clause's reference to a singular right has led some courts and scholars to assume, while neither assembly is the only right in the First Amendment that requires more than the lone individual for its exercise. Well, that's kind of interesting. Let's go to petition. The right to petition the government is among the oldest in our legal heritage, dating back 800 years to the Magna Carta. Remember the Magna Carta? Remember they told us how important that was? They told us how important it was. Was it really? Yeah, it was. And receiving explicit protection in the English Bill of Rights, 1689, long before the American Revolution. Don't fucking tell us that. The right declaration has justified the American by noting that King George II had repeatedly ignored petitions for redress of the colonists' grievances. So basically, it is the right to tell Congress your grievances, the right to tell the government your grievances. Well, I'll tell you who really has the right to petition her government is my kids, because they are not afraid to petition their dad with their rights of grievances. Happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. There was like a lot of TikToks with like the wives putting their hair up, like the Father's Day gift was going to be a blowjob, right? Like Happy Father's Day, here's your blowjob. I thought that was kind of funny, but also like, hey, not every dad just wants a blowjob from his wife. You know, he wants to spend time with his kids. But a blowjob wouldn't hurt. Hey. I'm not sure we got anywhere with this First Amendment, but yeah, the fact that there's by the way, no kings, what a wonderful branding. It's not Democrat, it's not Republican. We're all just saying we don't want to live in a world where there's a king. And look, they notice. Elected officials notice when thousands of people around the country march or protest. Some of you are like, what kind of tennis pot is this? Let's just do the results real quick. All right. So men's, Taylor Fritz wins his 7th tour title. He beats Sasha Zverev 3-6 in the Boss Open. Is that Hugo Boss? Oh, he probably has to play that, Taylor Fritz. And who did he beat in the semis? He beat Ben Shelton lost to Zverev 6-6. Imagine playing Ben Shelton on grass. Eek. Sasha Zverev was the first seed, lost in the final. Taylor Fritz beat Felix Auger-Aliassime in the semi. Quarterfinal, he beat Fucsovics 3-4. Round of 16, he beat Hales 3-6 from France. Round of 32, he probably had a bye. Get a bye. So Taylor Fritz wins his 7th title on grass. That's nice. That'd be good if he had a good Wimbledon. Then the Libema Open in the Netherlands. Now, this was wild. This was won by Riley Opelka, a lucky loser somehow, makes it to the semis. The finals of this ATP 250 was a Canadian, Gabriel Diallo, who is 44 in the world, 23 years old, skinny as a beanpole. I watched highlights of this match. This forehand is so loose. I'm like, how is this guy winning on grass? I mean, this thing is so loose. It is like a drunk toddler. Just like, you know how they, like that, like loose bones. Like when I try to pick up my daughter and take her out of the playground and they do just like spaghetti bones, that's what this guy plays like. I am baffled that everyone just doesn't pound the forehand and come to net. But he won. He won a tour event. That's amazing. By the way, thanks for all you watching on YouTube. We're doing big numbers on YouTube. Here's my book, Lucky Loser. It's out. It's available. It's crushing. People are loving it. It's audio book too. It's on Spotify. It's on Audible. I read it. Let's look at his draw. He was all over the place. But he beat some great players. He beat Hachinov in the quarters, 6-4. He beat Humbert in the semis, and then he beat Zuzu Bergs. Zizou Bergs. A German man. So good job. So that's the men. Women's final. We had the HSBC Championships on grass in London, and we had the Libema Open in Netherlands. We know that. Anisimova lost to Maria from Germany. Tatiana Maria. 37 years old? Jesus Christ. What the fuck? How many Instagram followers does she have? Tatiana Maria, 50,000. There's a picture of her with her entire family with the trophy. And we're talking like her kids are going to college. Good job, Tatiana Maria. I fucking love it. I love that a 38-year-old woman with kids who are like studying for the SAT just won an event. Nice fucking work. Also good work, Anisimova, because she's been grinding, dude. She left the game for a while. She came back. She's been grinding. And then the Libema Open was won by Martens from, is it Belgium? And she won 3 and 6 in the final, $18,000, 18,000 euros, which that's not a lot, really. I mean, for winning a tour event, Jesus Christ, for being that good at tennis. So fun. Results done. Other news is that, well, we'll get into this for a second. It's not fun, and it's just about political violence. It sucks. I think one thing to remember with Trump sending in federal troops to LA is it's unprecedented. We haven't seen it before at this scale. One thing, I had the privilege of socializing with a Marine this weekend. And, you know, one of the things he said was Marines are not trained to police American citizens who are protesting. That isn't what your training is. So, you know, you're sending Marines into a situation where that's not their strength. They're supposed to be like jumping out of a helicopter in Pakistan and killing whoever's bad. And he was telling me that, you know, when your rules of engagement, you do this whole thing, rules of engagement, what you're allowed to do and when you're allowed to do it. But at the end of the day, an American soldier is told, if you feel that someone's going to kill you, you kill them. If you feel that you're threatened, you kill them, because your training, the investment the American government has made in you is that you're more important than that, and don't risk the threat. So you send a bunch of Marines to LA and somebody throws a gas canister at him, it's terrible. This is not, it's in the First Amendment, the right to peaceably protest. And of course, every single word Trump will use to his advantage to interpret differently, whether or not it's not peace. I will say, waving a Mexican flag, although within your right, do it. It's America. It does make people less sympathetic, probably, who don't understand what's going on. People who live in Kansas, who already hate LA, who hate the coasts, they see people waving the Mexican flag and they go, that's the problem. That being said, you have the right to wave a Mexican flag and you have the right to protest. So I heard this interview this morning, and I'm going to play it for you guys. It's 4 minutes. It was on Morning Edition. It's about the political assassinations that have taken place in Minnesota. This guy impersonating a police officer with a sorry, I got a phone call. A cop car with real lights, tactical vest, badge, uniform, and also like one of those silicone masks. Killed some lawmakers and their spouses. Stopped at other people's homes. No one answered. This is like in the morning, 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Really sad stuff. But overall, what's even sadder and scarier is this increase in political violence. And I thought this was a really good interview. It's 4 minutes long. I'm just going to play it because I think we all need to hear it. I think it does a decent job of balancing out. Remember, there have been political violent attempts on both sides, including Donald Trump, who I believe they also, in this interview, he says he's both a victim of political violence and also a accelerator, which I think is very true. And this isn't just one event, everybody. This is Charlottesville. This is January 6th. This is this Steve Scalise at the softball game. This is, the threats on federal judges. This is the Molotov cocktail into Josh Shapiro, governor of Pennsylvania's house. This is these two lawmakers. This is the assassination attempt on Trump, who had two, remember? One guy got off 8 shots. The other guy set up a sniper rifle at Mar-a-Lago golf course. Who's to blame? Who's on the left? Who's on the right? Blah, 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 blah. Why is this happening? And let's stop it. Right? Why is this happening? And let's stop it. So, break from the norm here at Tennis Anyone podcast. I'm going to play this. Good job, Michelle Martin, who is the NPR reporter on this. She speaks with Matthew Dalick, a historian and professor at George Washington University, about political violence in America. I might pause it. Oh, I also have to read an email that I got about Yannick Sinner's second serve, which I think is great. Let's do this while we're talking about it, and then we'll finish with something more interesting, of course, which is tennis and Yannick Sinner's second serve. Here we go.
This message comes from Subaru.
Oh,
as
God,
part of their
Subaru
Loves the Earth initiative. They have partnered with the Arbor Day Foundation and will distribute over 100,000 trees this year, growing greener, healthier communities for generations to come. Subaru, more than a car company.
Which I do.
Belder went to 2 other lawmakers' homes, but they either were...
This is not what I want. Play.
The man accused of assassinating a Minnesota lawmaker and attempting to kill another is in custody. He's charged with murdering former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman, a Democrat, and her husband. The killings, as shocking as they are just the latest in a cascade of political violence in this country in recent months and years.
All right, so the Democrats, just bear with me. I'm not pointing. The people that were targeted were Democrats. This guy at one point was appointed by Governor Tim Walz, who is a Democrat. This guy, though, is a Trumpy, big time. Not that any of this matters, because the left can kill people just like the right can kill people and vice versa. But just so you're keeping score and you understand that everybody's fucked up here.
Years, including an arson attack at the home of Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro in April as his family slept, the assassination attempts against Donald Trump last year, and the January 6th mob attacks on the U.S. Capitol.
I'm glad they included those.
What's driving this? We're going to ask Matt Dalick. He's a professor and historian at George Washington University who studied political violence. Good morning, Professor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
This is somebody who studies political violence. This isn't your uncle. This isn't your dad. This isn't your friend who's got a conspiracy theory. This person goes to a prominent university and studies political violence. This person's an expert in political violence. We are not.
Thanks so much for having me.
I said this Minnesota case was shocking, but is it really?
It is shocking, but it's also not surprising. This is just the latest in a string of horrific attacks that go back now the better part of a decade. More than 9,000 threats against members of Congress last year, more than 1,000 serious threats against federal judges. Threats are up against state legislatures. And then, as you mentioned in the opening, one of the largest episodes of mass political violence in decades on January 6th that was sandwiched in between attacks like Charlottesville or the hammer attack on Paul Pelosi. So, I think that this...
Remember that hammer attack? Somebody showed up to the Pelosi's house with a fucking hammer? By the way, whenever there's like an attack like this and someone has a bunch of guns like this guy did, I always think, in Europe, this would be like a hammer attack or a knife attack. And it sucks, but somebody would get stabbed, hopefully live, and then that person would be killed. But in the United States, because of our infatuation with guns and the protection that the Second Amendment has, citizens can have weapons of war. And the fact that this guy only killed 2 and injured 2 others with like 6 guns in his car is insane. And We need more protections for weapons of war, and I believe civilians do not need to have those.
I think that this decade may ultimately be remembered in terms of the level of violence as, say, we remember the 1960s.
So it's not just perception. Political violence is becoming more common. I hate to use that word. That's not just something that that's a real thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's become endemic, yeah.
Okay, so help us understand why threats and violence are rising. What stands out to you?
Endemic. Regularly occurring within an area or community. Okay? I looked it up for you, but I also looked it up for me.
Stands out to you?
Well, there are a lot of factors.
So she asked why. Why is political violence endemic at this point?
One is I think that there's a general loss of faith and trust in institutions and a kind of roiling anger toward elites, expertise, a real hatred toward a government that we have not seen in many decades. I think obviously President Trump, his rhetoric.
The government isn't good at messaging. The government isn't good at telling us and showing us what they're doing for us. And that isn't their fault because they're not branding and promoting and marketing themselves, the government. Joe Biden is a great example of this. Absolutely hideous messenger. But I believe his administration was effective. Trump, I believe, is also effective for what he's trying to do, but really knows how to message, even if, it's fucked up messaging. I'm going to back it up 15 seconds so you can hear this Trump answer.
Roiling anger toward elites, expertise, a real hatred toward a government that we have not seen in many decades. I think obviously President Trump, his rhetoric and his actions, he's been a victim of political violence, of course, but he's also an accelerant. So his dehumanizing language, calling his opponents scum, saying the greatest threat to the U.S. is internal, but also his actions. So pardoning, for example, the January 6 rioters, including those who beat police officers. It sends a message to his supporters that violence in defense of Trump is justified. And in fact, you might even be treated as a hero. Social media.
That's true. When you get pardoned, that didn't help, did it?
So media fuels a kind of fractured reality. And then I think importantly, the way we react to violence, the kind of fractured, really fighting over who's responsible for political violence is another source of division. So violence in a way begets violence, and we can't really agree on a common understanding and kind of come together in a way that provides for some sort of national healing.
So before we let you go, and this is obviously a rich topic, I do hope we'll talk again about this. Are there examples where this kind of culture of violence subsides?
Well, violence like this ebbs and flows. And right now it's flowing. But certainly after the mid-1970s, over 15 years, a period of sustained violence subsided. Actions like Bill Clinton after the Oklahoma City bombing. He went to a deep red state. And I think that there was a genuine moment in the country, a kind of almost universal condemnation of the violence of the bombing of the Oklahoma federal building. So I think leaders and citizens and faith in institutions can help, but it takes a long time.
I mean, it is, I was hoping for a better, a more promising, inspiring, when will this end? I read another New Yorker article a while ago that said like something catastrophic has to happen, like the assassination of the president or, mass casualties or world war. I hope that's not the case. I hope we can learn from this, but we're not. We're not. And also, Bill Clinton, I always just laugh thinking about Bill Clinton and the fact that that he got a blowjob was such a problem. And when the stock market was up in America, it was like before 9/11 and everything was just like honky dory and like, oh no, he did a sex thing. And, now we have a president who was criminally charged. 4 different states federally and anyway. So, I think violence is not the answer. And I think it's really sad that our elected officials, they don't make a lot of money, these like state senators and shit, these people are showing up to kill them. It's really sad. And I just want to say, don't do it. I know you're not, but let's try to, what is the answer? Maybe more of us should be involved in government. Maybe we should not react so viscerally. I don't know. At the same time, reacting to the military parade with no kings protest seems to be really effective and make people feel good. Peaceably protest. There we go. I liked his interview, and I liked how he talked about it, and that violence ebbs and flows, and right now it's flowing. And let's all try to help it ebb. Last thing. I got this email from Luke. Luke is a listener. Thank you, Luke. Remember, Jannik Sinner only hit 2 double faults all French Open. The entire French Open, he had 2 double faults. Carlos Alcaraz had 7 in just the finals. And I commented on that on the last episode. This is Luke's email to me, which I thought was great. Hi, Michael. Hitting only 2 double faults through 7 matches and none in the finals is an incredible feat. However, it made me wonder if Sinner is actually taking too little risk on his second serve. And as a result, his second serve is becoming too predictable in its spin and placement, which a player like Alcaraz can exploit and could even make the difference in a match of razor-thin margins. Excellent point, Luke. It looks like Sinner won 50% of points off his second serve, whereas Alcaraz won 57% of points on his second serve. Sinner won 70% on his first serve, Alcaraz 63%. So there was a huge drop off points won on Sinner's second serve. So Sinner won 50% of his second serve, whereas Alcaraz won 57%. These stats don't prove that Sinner's second serve is predictable, but my gut feeling is that a few double faults in the final may have been worth it. If that could have kept Alcaraz guessing more and preventing aggressive returns of Sinner's second serve, we'd love to hear your thoughts on the next pod. Should Sinner take more risk, maybe even throw in a few 130 mile per hour flat second serves? I said strongly agree. Great point. Yeah. You don't want to always just hit kick serve to the backhand second serve, especially in a 5-set match, especially in 5 hours. They will start to pick on. I would say Sinner still winning 50% is pretty good. You don't want it to drop below 50%, but you'd much rather be at 57%, 60%. You know, Pete Sampras, what was his second serve? Can I find this? Pete Sampras, second serve percentage win points. AI. Pete Sampras, second serve percentage win points. What's given in the problem? Pete Sampras' second serve points won is 53%. How do they? I mean, this is stats. Aces, 8,000. Pete Sampras. Return. Second serve return points won. Let's see. Do they have this? First serve points won, 81%. Wow. Second serve points won, 53%. I mean, that's still low for me. That's wild to me that Pete Sampras only won 53%. Who else has a great second serve? Roger Federer. Let's see that. Roger Federer, second serve points won. I'm going to the ATP page for this. Roger Federer, 11,000 aces. Second serve points won, 57%. Wow. That's crazy. I'm surprised that Pete Sampras is at 53%. Let's see. Rafa Nadal, second serve points won. Boom. Rafael Nadal, player stats, 57%. Wow. Unbelievable. Pete Sampras won 81% of first serves. Rafa's at 72% first serves. Roger was higher than that, 77%, I think. Second serve points, 57%. So yes, Jannik Sinner at 50%. Oh, now we gotta do Nadal, Joker. Novak Djokovic, second serve points won. I'm gonna say lower. I'm going to say 52. ATP player stats. First serve points won 74. Second serve points won, ready? 56. Very high. So look at that. Alcaraz 57, Nadal 57, Federer 57, Novak Djokovic 56, Alcaraz 57 in the final. So the fact that Jannik Sinner was at 50% with 2 double faults the entire match, yes, he should be hitting a more aggressive second serve. Good point, Luke. Great point. Wish it was mine. Thank you for listening to Tennis Anyone podcast. I'm Michael Kosta. Please leave a rating and a review. Talk to you soon. Game, set, match. Kosta. Don't do political violence. Kosta.